Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Insurance Town. I'm the mayor, Heath Shearon, and the host of this podcast. I'm here hanging out with you today with my friend, Kevin Koone. He is a longtime insurance agent from Little Rock, works with Hub International. He's a great dude. He's a good friend. I just can't wait for you to hear this conversation, and it's going to be so much fun. I can't wait for you to check it out. This episode is brought to you by my good friends over at Smart Choice, the fastest growing agency network, hands down. 10,000 agencies across the country using Smart Choice. 11 billion worldwide, nationwide, countrywide, across the nation, however you want to say it. That's $11 billion either way you shake it down. Go to smartchoiceagents.com and check it out. Also, my friends over at Canopy Connect, they are unbelievable. One-click solution to getting the deck pages you need. They also have intake forms. They also help you with your onboarding experience. They also help you with deck pages. Also, they help you with loss runs. They also help you with driver lists. Anything you want on an existing policy, you've got it right to your dashboard. Go to usecanopy.com/Heath and check it out. Also, my good friends over at Old School Marketing, digital, direct mail, all the above. You know, if you're going to do some marketing, do it with the people who know how to do it for insurance agents. That's Old School Marketing, OLDE, schoolmarketing.com. I'm going to slide out of the way and let you check out this amazing conversation with my good friend, Kevin Koone. Kevin Koone, what's going on, my brother?
Hey, buddy. How are you?
Man, I am good. All right, so talk to me a little bit. You look a little like Santa Claus there with the rosy red cheeks. What have you been up to, man?
I spent a lot of time outside at soccer games with my son, and lately
Yeah?
the wind is burning us. So
Dude,
I
we
realized
are
that when I
turning to
got
Oklahoma.
home.
We're turning to Oklahoma with that wind, man. It's crazy.
For sure, blowing us all around. So that's probably what's going on. The white beard makes me look real red and white. So yeah.
And that hair is phenomenal, man. I just, it's really weird to me. Like in Arkansas, and again, you know, for the audience that know, Kevin's a friend of mine from Arkansas. So the other day when I saw we were going to have like 40-mile-an-hour winds in the state of Arkansas, I was like, it's crazy. Like we didn't normally get that. And so I definitely could see where you get the wind burn cheeks. But, you know, I really do feel like we're going to become the new Oklahoma as far as tornado, as far as wind. I just think that's coming this way.
Yeah. I feel like we've kind of been insulated for a little bit, and people have forgotten. And then now companies and things like that are starting to wake up and realize, hey, we're taking a lot of risk in this weather, and what are we doing? So, you know.
Yeah, for a while, I kind of felt like we were protected by, you know, northeast or northwest Arkansas, the little mountains and whatnot. I think maybe it kind of helped us a little bit, but for some reason, I guess they're just jumping over that now and just coming on in. But it's crazy.
Yeah. Who knows? It'll switch around again in a few years, but you know
it will. But in the meantime, we'll take some rate hikes. But
right.
So your kid, your soccer player, is what grade?
I've got a sophomore boy, 10th grader.
Playing in high school or playing
like
high
school
ball or
no, it's high school ball. Second year
awesome.
playing high school ball, so he loves it. We've had kids go through. We've been playing soccer for, you know, it's the redneck from Arkansas. Like it's totally foreign to me. But all the kids started at 4, and they played ever since. So they played other stuff, but soccer's been full time. So
there you go. Hey, your kids won't ever be like known for being out of shape when you're playing that much soccer. My God,
that's true. They go in
soccer.
Yeah, me too. They go into other sports and they laugh at the other kids that are like falling out. And they're like, "We just ran a lap, y'all. It's fine. We're good." You know, so.
Exactly. You know, I was talking to my daughter. She's a 6th grader, and she's wanting to try out for the soccer team at Charter. And she was like, "Soccer's not like a highly skilled sport. All you do is run." And I was like, you would think, but you know, obviously she's a 12-year-old, so she doesn't know. But I'm like, you're right. I mean, you can kick a ball, but you have to have a lot of endurance. And so I got her out to, you know, take a little run, and she was gassed after, you know, a little bit down the street. I was like, honey, you're going to have to really get after it. Now, my son plays basketball, so he's used to end-to-end running, but my daughter's making me laugh. It's like, that's a skill in itself to have that kind of endurance. But anywho.
It is. It's good for them. They've never been out of, they've rarely been out of shape. So.
Right. So before we get too deep into the Soccer Town podcast, let's learn a little bit more about Kevin Koone. So take a walk down memory lane with me and tell me a little bit about who you are, like what brought you to where you are today.
So I'll try to make this short because I can long-winded here. But so I've grown up here, Central Arkansas, my whole life. Um, Ended up going to school, going to college, thinking I was going to do something medical. Always had good buddies that I really admired, family members and close family friends that did stuff like that. Thought I was going to do that. Went to college, did fine. Did not want to go to any further school. So got out and then was that kid who worked part-time jobs, had two or three jobs going at once when I first got out of college and got accepted. This is probably more information you want to do. Got accepted into a fast track nursing program, got accepted into a master's level, like for wildlife management. Couldn't commit to any of it. And then ended up working at ULR here in town doing computer mapping, doing GIS work. Because I had a buddy that worked there and they worked pretty tight with the biology department. And coming out of that was kind of all I knew. Did that. Worked a state job for 3.5 years. And then hated it. And then answered a church bulletin ad for a guy that was starting a state farm agency. And I jumped on that. He hired me. Never didn't know a thing about insurance, never knew anything about it. They did have really good training. I learned a lot. I learned real quick. I didn't want to be in that model. But from the day one I started in that office, I had, upper management coming to my desk being like, "Hey, when are you ready? Like, we'll get you an agency." I'm like, "Oh, maybe." Quickly learned that was not for me.
Yeah.
But was working that job, shutting it down, opening up, shutting it down, working Saturdays, filing claims, doing all the things while the guy was trying to make it. I mean, it's tough. It's a tough
Yeah.
row. I don't envy that. And then lo and behold, a guy that I grew up going to church ran into me at a football game on Friday night. It's like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And I told him and did not realize that he owned an insurance agency,
Yeah.
had for, 25 years at that point. And the next Monday, they called me at my State Farm office and be like, "Hey, let's come. We're going to take you to lunch." I'm like, "Oh." So I went to lunch with those guys, my lunch hour that I got, and they offered me a spot, come over full commission, and so I jumped at it. Well, actually, I had a little run in with my boss at State Farm, and I was like, "Okay, it's time to leave." And so,
Yeah.
um,
Perfect timing.
yeah, jumped over there. That was 2003, like
Yeah.
first of the year. You guys, I mean, people that know me, like I accepted the job like January 15th, told them I would be there February 1st after duck season closed. And so took that time to have a couple weeks of running amok and then started. Been doing that. We were Stevensdale. I bought in about 10 years in, was a partner for a few years. About 5 years ago, we sold out to a big player, Hub International. Been doing that ever since. I don't know if that's enough detail or not enough.
No, that's
Feel
perfect, man.
free
You
to,
gave me a lot to write down, man.
yeah.
Man, you've done from the medical to computer mapping, and then get into insurance.
Was a janitor for a while too in there. I
Oh,
mean,
there you
you got to
go.
do what you got to do.
You got to do what you got to do. Totally get it. No, but one of the things I'm always fascinated in, if guys that listen to this show on a regular basis, I always ask this question when I have people on that come from a captive. You brought it up already, the training there. Do you could you talk to me a little bit about, because State Farm, my brother worked at State Farm as
Yeah.
as an agent there, and said the training there was just top notch. My brother, but top notch, just phenomenal training there. And again, most captives, when they come out of that model, they know they don't want to be there forever, but it's probably the best place to start with training.
Yeah.
What are some of the things you learned there that you're still using today, or you still come back to or think back to?
Yeah. So I think growing up and even in school, I'm a science guy. Still kind of am a science nerd. I love looking at stuff, being
Yeah.
outdoors, picking up frogs and salamanders, and doing that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I was very like this is what we're doing, very kind of task oriented, not really good. And I'm still not really good with people. I'm not salesy. Like, I'll be honest with you, after we do this, I'll probably go hide in the closet for a little bit because I've talked so much and like bothers me. And so anyway, but what I learned there, so at the time we were in North Little Rock, we're in a strip mall, like a lot of State Farm guys are. They had their own office. They don't have it anymore. They had like a management office over off Cantrell. And like they would bring you in, like, I don't know, once a month, like the staff would all get together from Central Arkansas or whoever, and like we might do some policy training. There's a lot of like sales
Yeah.
training, a lot of like role play, which I hate. I mean, absolutely is like, you know, it's death. It's a long, slow death for me. But like so we did a lot of that. But it was good. You talked to people, you learned about the policies because you go through insurance school, for lack of a better term, for a week, and then you take your test, you pass it. I did both. I did the PNC and the life and health right back to back and took the test and got it all done. That's one thing, right? Learning the policies, like standardized nationwide policies, is one thing. Learning what State Farm or Travelers or Chubb or whatever offers is a total different deal. And so when you go to State Farm or any other captive, like they train you in that, like, hey, this is what we're good at. This is what we like to do. This is what we don't want you to ever do. You will be fired if you do this. You could be sued if you do this. How to document things, how to do that really well, but just how to talk to people. I will say one of the things we did, like during that time, I don't know if they still do this, but they had a night every couple months where after your normal business day, they bring you over to that office and they had a call center, and like they'd stick you like a runoff dot matrix printer list of people to call.
Yeah.
And for me, once again, horrible, but especially when you're calling them between 5 and 8, 5 and 9, those people, very rarely did you have any success. And I think maybe that was the point looking
Yeah.
back. Like they were like, hey, if you can take getting yelled at and cussed at by people at their dinner time. Um, I do remember having one call though. The guy was like, hey man, like, how old are you? And I was, telling him, well, you should stick with this. Like, I've got buddies that do insurance and it's a good living. Like, you should do it. You're good with people. And I'm like, I mean, this is Joe Smith from Yellville, and I'm calling or whatever it is. And
Yeah.
that's the only positive call I ever remember happening. I didn't sell him anything, but he was positive about it, and kind of funny that you remember that stuff when you're, just
Oh
starting
yeah.
out doing it. But yeah, so that was the best thing, like some techniques, some role play, some just how to get out there, and then just kind of system document kind of stuff. Because I
So
don't I don't know how I know that you've done this too, but like when I got thrown in the independent world, it was like, hey, here's this tiny desk. Here's a
yeah.
computer that's 5 years old.
Yep.
Here's the three companies we offer. Go get it. And that's it. And so you're kind of like, okay, so you kind of have to rely on some of that stuff to, get going, get working right. So
Yeah, no, I totally remember that. And a lot of people listening to this would probably be able to say they remember the same thing of like, go get them, Tiger, and just pat you on the butt. They don't do a whole
mhm.
lot, especially and I say not to knock the independent world, but they don't do a lot of that kind of training. It's just like, hey,
Yeah.
go get it. And again, I think some of that's changing. But again, when you talk through that, you brought up early on in your life again, until so I guess 10 years or so after 10, 15 years after high school, when you were trying to figure out your way or whatever, you couldn't commit to this. You said you didn't like this, you didn't like that. But what was it about the intro just finally clicked with you and you're like, wait a minute, maybe that guy's right. Maybe I should do this, or I do
Yeah.
like this. What was it? Was there anything in particular that made you decide, or was it just one of those things of like, okay, I'm about to be in my 30s, or I am in my 30s. It's time to settle down.
Yeah.
Which
I think it's a little of both. I think I learned, um, you learn that you can handle things, like do whatever somebody throws at you. Life's hard, I mean, let's be honest with it. I was, I got married at 25. I think I
yeah,
started the State Farm job 26, and then, worked there for a year and then was independent at 27, 28. But like a lot of it was that, right? A lot of it was like, hey, I'm married. Like, I've got to figure out a way to
Yeah.
support my family. I have tried to do the science thing. I have applied to other options. And funny enough, like being a biology guy and you not having a lot of options, like I applied to game and fish, like around here, like right, constantly,
Yeah.
constantly for years. As soon as I got out of college, constantly, never got anything, never got a call. And then I'll tell this short story. You can cut it out if you need to, but like while I was working at State Farm, the hatchery in Lone Oak called me because I had
Yeah.
applied for something 2 years before then. Hey, come out for an interview. I'm like, okay. I go out to that interview, and it was 20 of us that interviewed. It was a high school level job, high school level. I don't even think you had to be graduated, like, but it was a high school level job. And that's how competitive those jobs are, right? Like we had
Yeah.
20 of us, 11 or 12 of us had master's degrees or higher. And then there was the rest of us were all college graduates.
Yeah.
And like went out and talked to the guy and like called me back, said, hey, you weren't our first choice, but our first choice turned us down. Like, we'd like for you to take this job. And I'm like, I met with him again. And of course,
Yeah.
I wasn't making a lot at State Farm, but like I was going to make less there, going to be seining fish ponds, driving a fish truck overnight, because they supply all over. And so, right then I knew I was like, this is, and because I was married, I was like, this is not work. Like,
Yeah.
I do want to have a family. I do want my wife to stay with me. I do, love being here. And so, but I think what really kicked in was when I got that opportunity with the independent agency. Just the kind of, it's kind of a family, how until recently,
Yeah.
like most independent agencies are mom and pop, family
Yeah.
run, there
Sure.
still are some really good ones out there, but a lot of them have sold out or closed down. And so it was a family thing. And the guys that owned it, like I really respected them. And although they were kind of like, hey, go get it, full commission, you're on a draw, by the way, you know, it
But
was,
there's
it
something
was
inside
good.
you that you have to kick in this special gear or this
Yeah,
extra gear. Say, wait a minute, because those that aren't familiar with the draw, I mean, if you don't make it, you got to pay it back. Or if you
yeah,
don't make
for
it,
sure.
you get it cut out of your next paycheck, whatever the situation might be.
Mhm.
So you're in a tough spot there. You're doing a lot of extra prayers at night to say, Lord, I got to make it,
Yeah,
or I'm going to be in a hole, and then my wife's going to be yelling at me, or I'm not going to be able to make the mortgage, and we're going to have kids in the future, whatever it might be.
yeah,
I mean, that's a whole different ball game.
yeah. And they don't do that anymore. Like from what I've
Yeah,
been, it's not a thing anymore. But like I remember doing the draw and like, back then I would, and now I do a spreadsheet like everybody else, but back then I had
yeah,
a spiral notebook where I wrote
yep,
down like, this is what I sold, the date, the company, the policy, the premium. And I
yeah,
kept that for that first few years, right? Because you're just like, okay, I sold a boat policy for $100.
yeah,
I'm gonna make seven.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Okay. So I paid for like, you know, I mean, a tenth of my gas tank. Like, let's be honest, so it's kind of
yeah.
like it's a hard road, but like, yeah, they don't do that anymore. But it took me 3.5, 4 years to kind of even out, you know?
Well, yeah, and nowadays, like you said, it's not necessarily a thing anymore. But nowadays, agencies are like they're validating their
Yeah.
producers, and they
Yeah.
have a certain. It's similar, but it's not. But
Yeah.
again,
You
it's
don't pay it back though. You don't pay it back.
no.
We're going to start you here. We'll pay you here. You got to
But if you
be
don't
here by,
validate, you're
yeah.
gone
Yeah. Yeah.
instead
Right.
of pay it back. And so, which I get that, but at the same time, I think there's something to be said for those that came up on that situation of a draw or straight commission, no salary. And, I don't even get off on, my soapbox on that because I get so frustrated talking to students at UCA when they want to come straight up and be an underwriter or work for a carrier because they want that guaranteed salary. And I'm like,
Mhm.
you're missing the boat. Commission
Yeah.
only insurance producers can make so much more money than you could probably some of the managers of underwriters at some of these carriers. You could make more money than maybe the CEO of some of these carriers if you do it right. And so again, we start thinking through and the producers and the agency owners and whatnot they're listening right now, like, as you're coming through and you're coming up as this draw and this personality of like, I've got to make it, I've got this spreadsheet or this notebook going. At what point did you start to click, okay, if I'm only making seven on a boat, but I can make 30 on a car, or maybe,
Right.
whatever on here. Did you start to click in your mind, okay, I need to start going after higher end, or did your
Yeah.
science brain kick in there, or?
Yeah. So yeah, you kind of get that way to where you're, when you're first starting, like you're clawing, grabbing, calling everybody you can.
Yep.
And like, you're right. I mean, I don't know how everybody was. But I rode a lot of boats and four wheelers, right? And then like
Yeah.
in a couple months, I'm calling them back like, hey, you ready to talk about home and auto? Or how about that
Yeah.
hunting cabin? Or,
Yeah.
I know you got a rental house that you don't really like. Like, let me help you with that. Like, and so yeah, you kind of, because companies do even more so now than they did then, but the commissions grow as the package grows, right?
Sure.
Like you may be at 14%, but if you have three lines, you may be at 16 and a half or something, and so um yeah, it didn't take long to figure that out. But when you first start, it's like, hey, get me in the door. Yes, I
Yeah.
will write your boat. Yes, I will write your four-wheeler. Yes, I will write that kid that has three speeding tickets, and I will do
Yeah.
everything that I can. Yes, I will write a floating house on a barge. Yeah, I'll do that.
Yeah.
And I will
Yeah.
meet with you four times a year because you want me to, even though
Exactly.
I
No, I
mean,
get it.
so yeah, you do whatever you can and then kind of grow it from there. But yeah, the more you get into it, the longer you do. I mean, everybody knows this. Like you hate to do this, but you do level clients. Like you do say, hey,
Oh,
love you, but like you just have an auto with me. Here's your
yeah, you
option.
have to tier
Like,
your clients. Yeah.
yeah, or so.
So
But
then
yeah,
fast forwarding 10 or 15 years, and you're, now a partner in a good, I mean, in Arkansas, Stevensdale was a good size agency, had a
yeah,
great reputation. You were in a great location. I
yeah,
used to tailgate right across the street and actually
yeah,
park in your driveway or whatever.
mhm.
Great spot. Actually, my best friend bought your old building.
Yeah. Okay, good.
Jay Coates and David and some of my friends over there bought your building. But anyhow, so I still have my tailgate spot if we ever bring him back to Little Rock. But
Yeah,
anyway, so now you've transitioned there and you've got a good amount of markets, you've got a good reputation, things are going
mhm.
well, and you're starting to get into and I don't know if this is purposeful or not, but private client, you're starting to get into some more high net worth type of situations. Was that an intentional thing? Again, going back to your old days of the spreadsheet, okay, I can make more here, or it just happened to
Yeah.
naturally gravitate there, or referral partners sent you there? How did you get
I
into high net worth?
I think you gravitate there to some point. I will say, even through Stevensdale days, like I wrote, you know, normal everyday guy every chance I could, just like me. Like, got a
Sure.
home, got a couple cars, maybe you have a boat or a four wheeler. I started adding umbrellas on because being the science guy, I'm really risk adverse. Like, I'm like, this will probably never happen, but yes, I will pay $200 a year just to make sure that
Sure.
something
Yeah.
happens. So, I, in all honesty, like my high net worth clients back then were because they grew into it. Like,
Yeah.
they started and then they were successful and they stuck with me for 15 years and like had talks with them like, hey, we need to make some changes. But we didn't have access to all those markets, right? Like when
Yeah.
we were Stevensdale, say mom and pop, but kind of family owned place. Like we had a couple of the markets, but the rest of them we had to go through brokers, so it wasn't really worth it. Like it was hard. If you're going through a broker and you're making 2% or something, like it's not like you'd almost rather them go somewhere else, help them to do that, or like cover
Yeah.
them with your normal markets, but like do everything you can. But like since Hub is very focused on high net worth.
Sure.
I still, the majority of my book is not that, is everyday people, and I love that, and that's how I'll always be. But they really focus on it, and they have companies, contracts with all the big
Yeah.
players, and they're helpful. And the thing about this that people don't understand, that when they kind of fight you a little bit when you take them from, and you hate to throw out names, but like you take them from a Safeco or a Travelers, that's a great company. It's going to cover you, but like it's not going to be the white glove service
Sure.
if you have, a lot of assets, and you take them to that, and people don't realize that the underwriters are almost like a partner. They're like, hey, this is what you need. This is why. Here's something to talk about with the client. Here's this, like, this is why they need to make the move. It's not for us. They can go anywhere, but like, and so that has been helpful, the way Hub does things that way. That there's a lot more opportunity in the high net worth field. So
Yeah. Now, just me being nosy in person, I've never gotten into the high net worth. Probably because I'm just a redneck, good old boy from Arkansas. But like, I
Yeah,
never
me
did.
too, man. Me
I
too.
never did get into a whole lot of it. But when you're talking to that, and right now, you know, again, going back to you mentioned, right at pandemic time is when you sold to Hub and you started to
Hmm.
really get into this kind of thing and starting to get exposed to some of this. When you're talking to these high net worth clients and you go to them with an increase, you're going to them with the hard market type of stuff and you're dealing with, the roof ages and you're dealing with, cancellations, or you may be dealing with, you know, all the different reasons why their price went up. Is that conversation's different with high net worth, or is it still the same kind of conversations? Man, my rates went up. I can't handle this. Shop me, or are they more understanding? I'd love to hear the mindset there.
Yeah, and I will tell you, like I'm still, you ain't getting grain. I'm still learning it, right? Like I'm still learning
Sure.
it.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
I would say it's like everybody else. Like there's a reason they're high net worth. I mean, when I've got, Grandma Ethel that's calling me because her premiums went up $25 a year, and I'm understanding of that, but then I've got, you know, a higher net worth individual that's got, $3 million house, a few $100,000 in auto, and they're like, hey, I'm like, yeah, well, let's talk through it. Let's talk through what we're doing. It's the same process.
Yeah.
Just
Okay.
they're all a little different as far as how they want to receive it. Sometimes
Okay.
they want like 5 words, you know, like this is why, whereas somebody will want you to, take them to coffee and talk to them about it and come see the house again and, ask them about their kids. It's just people. And, you get to a point where you've got people that are nice people that want to work with you in both areas, and you've got people that are, I could, I can be blunt here, but like you got people that are jerks that have
Yeah.
nothing and jerks that have everything. And so
Sure.
it's just like all of us, it's kind of, you just listen and do your best. And, in the past few years, like a lot of insurance agents, I've spent a lot of time like taking calls from other people's clients being like, hey, you need to stay here because this, like make a couple changes. Like don't come to me. Like, or, you know,
Yeah.
keeping people here and just being like, hey, these are the two things we need to change. But I can help you if you really, really want to go somewhere. I've got buddies elsewhere. Like we'll send you there and we'll help you make the process. It's just about being a good person all around,
Yeah. 100%. I know a lot of that
So
goes back to your faith and your beliefs and your morals
yeah,
and whatnot. But I
sure.
wonder, and this is a question I ask a lot of people through pandemic, that the leading with empathy and having those conversations and educating more and spending that time with people and massaging those people a little bit more, was that something you developed, even more, had to develop through the tough times in the hard market? Was that something you feel like you've always had, and you just had to learn through? Because
Yeah.
you said earlier you're not really a people person or whatnot.
Yeah.
Is that something you had to develop?
I'm real good one on one. I'm horrible in a room. Like, I mean, and
Yeah.
I will help anybody do anything one on one. I mean,
Yeah.
honestly, and I think I've grown up that way. Just people always took care of me, so I'm more than willing to
Yep.
take care of people any best I can. So on one-on-one or, talking with a family, I'm pretty good. If you want me to get up and lecture, like if you want me to teach a college class that's 400 people, it's not happening.
Not your guy,
Like
not your spot. I
they
got you.
they won't like me, I won't like them. I mean, so it's kind of, but as far as, I would say one of sometimes I get a little too empathetic and like maybe not as stern with things that need to be done. Be like, hey man, this is how I feel about it. Like you need to think about it. Whereas sometimes you just need to be like, hey, this is how it is.
Yeah.
Like, I hate to be this way. I'm here for you, but like we're going to do this, or you need to make another change somehow. Like, and so I do feel like I've always been real straight to the point. I mean, you tell people growing up, like college buddies, they're like, if they asked me a question, they wanted to know the answer, right? Otherwise, don't ask me. Like, but I can be empathetic, but I can also be like, I'm probably not going to smooth this over for you. Like,
Right.
it's going to
And
be,
that's how it's funny, you say that and you bring it up, that conversation with that, because I remember growing up watching my dad selling insurance,
mhm,
and my dad's an old guy. I don't know if I say that in jest. I love my father, but he's 80 years old, still slinging insurance.
Yeah, that's
And
awesome.
so when I was coming in 20 years ago, 23 years ago, whatever, he was 60-year-old guy selling insurance. So I would watch him, and his approach was, again, he calls it the Columbo approach. So he would just kind of fumble through and talk through things. But it was also, he had this approach of um, like if you were my son, here's what I would do. If you were my daughter, here's what I would tell you to do. And he pulled that papa approach, that fatherly approach. And at the time when I was a young kid, I was like, these people don't want to hear from some 60-year-old man telling them, if
Yeah,
you were my son, but it worked. I mean, these people, a
it
lot of times
does.
it would be, hey, these rates may not be the best for you right now. If you were my son, I would tell you, stay where you're at, make these changes, do this. Or I would say, hey, you're going to have to take an increase. I could take care of you here, blah, 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 blah. And he would tell them, and he would
Yeah,
convince them to switch over to him. But it was just that approach. Like you said, sometimes it's the best move to move and sometimes it's not. But
yeah,
watching him go through that advisory, like, let me just sit down and just talk to you through it. And let me just, here's what you need to do.
yeah,
But then, like you said, there's other clients that want those 5 words of like, here's the like da 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 da. And then,
yeah.
okay, done. I mean, show me where to sign them in.
Right. And I will say the majority of people, it's funny now, times are changing. They're still changing. They're going to change every day. But people's time is very important. My time is very important.
Yeah.
So if you can't get what you need to get quickly, and I fall short a lot of times, like, I'll have meetings like this, or I'll have my networking meeting, or I'll have something at church or kids. And so, I mean, I'll be the first to say, like, my family's priority, right? Like, you may not hear from me if I'm at a family event. Like, I mean, don't, I'll do everything I can, but you're not going to get a call back. Like if I'm in the middle of it, so,
But if you
um,
set those boundaries early and often, I
yeah,
think people
yeah,
respect that.
they do.
You know,
But everybody's so busy. Like sometimes it's just like, if you don't hit them within 5 minutes, 10 minutes, you might as well not call them. Like,
a
I
hundred
mean,
percent. And I
so
think this day and age, in my opinion, I think time is even a more important currency than the dollar bill or than, money sometimes
yeah,
because everyone, like you said, everyone's time is so precious. And that, obviously you'd mentioned, you're good one-on-one and things of that nature, but and going back to conversations you've had, but you've been in leadership roles within your organization, especially, even going back to 2013 or whatever it was when you bought into officially being in leadership there. Was this some advice that you would give to your, CSRs, account managers, other producers to say, hey, lead with empathy, educate along the way, do things like that? Or do you
yeah.
find, you gave different advice?
Uh, depends on who it was, right? Like,
Yeah.
our staff now is, I mean, I hate to even say staff. I know there's a million terms for it now, but like we have the best people. We really do. But we have people that are empathetic, that are like, hey, here's your options. And then we have other people that are like, it's just, hey, I'm running through my list. It's this, and this. Get back to me when you can, but otherwise we're not talking about it. Right. So it kind of just depends on the person, and it kind of depends on what role they're in and what line. Like I would say my personal lines people in general have always been a little bit more, hey, how are you? What can I do to help you? Did you get that claim taken care of? Like, is everything good? Whereas, our commercial staff people are more, hey, I need this so I can get your COI out so that you don't get, a bad letter from your vendor, or something.
Yeah.
They're more straightforward and like
Yeah.
get it done. They're less, if you find that you have a commercial account that's giving you more trouble, they'll let it go. Like, I mean, it's like, hey, we don't have time. Like, you know, and so it's kind of for personal lines, it's more like, how can I help you? This is your home, this is your car, this is your kid. What can we help you with? It's just different for everybody. And I think we've been lucky enough that our staff's been with us a long time for the most part. And we do have a couple newer members, and they're learning. But they were trained well by our predecessors. They were loved on and given a lot of space, but they were also like, hey, this is how we do it. We're going to do it right. We're going to take care of people. And then, we've never been, um, lack of a better term, like a churn and burn agency. We're
Yeah.
not. we're not those people. Hey, we want you, but we want you here for 10, 15 years or a lifetime. I mean, what's the average that you keep a policy like 7
6.
or 8 years? We feel like we're better than that. Like I've got people that I wrote that first year still here.
That's amazing.
I've got people that I wrote that first year left and came back, and so I love that. Like, that's great, and but it's, because everybody has a family member that's in insurance, right? You have so many that come and go.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, my nephew has started an Allstate agency. I'm like,
100%.
yeah. What do you need?
Go do that. Go help your family out. You'll be not in your mind. You're like, you'll be back, but
26 months later, right? Like, you get the call, like, hey, they're out, and I'm like, great. Send me your stuff. We'll get it written, and so.
Yeah.
But
Or
it's just,
they get the letter or the postcard from said captive that says we can write your insurance for $800, and truly their premiums are more like 1,800 or whatever. But
we've gotten a lot of those
throw out
pictures
a
lately.
price. Say what?
I've gotten a lot of those pictures lately from those
Oh, yeah.
flyers that, which we sent out a long time ago. We signed up for that service, but a little bit more applicable today. Like, when you get somebody that has a $500,000 house, that they're getting a letter saying their premium is $796. It is not. It is not.
It's just they pick it. I found out later from some of those people, they just pick an arbitrary number out and just stick it out there. Okay, my question to you, because you and I have been at this, around the same time. I got my license in 2002, and you were talking about 2003.
Probably 2002, 2001 when I got mine too. So
I took. My mom was calling me. Sorry. So yeah, you talk about. Sorry, Mom. I'll call you later. But you talk about. First of all, did you go through Robert Hobbs at ISTA?
Yeah, Robert Hobbs and Warren Oliver.
Oh yeah, with the cowboy boots and his spurs and whatnot. Anyway, shout out to, God rest his soul, I think, Robert Hobbs. But anyhow, so I can safely say, now that I'm in this market now, in my 20 whatever years in the industry, we've never seen anything like this. First of all, the hard markets we've had in the past have been like a blip on the radar screen in the past.
Yeah.
So when you talk about the challenges of selling, and because a lot of people right now that came in the hard market, you may have recruited a few people in the last 5 years, and you brought them in the hard market, like, oh, when are we going to go soft? When are we going to da. And when you're in a hard market, people or soft market, be like, oh, I can't wait for it to harden up a little. I would say, in my opinion, obviously it's tough right now. Don't get me wrong, with carriers pulling out, whatnot. I would almost rather be in a harder market than a soft market, because soft market people will leave you for $1. Yeah. And they're always shopping. They're shopping you regardless, whether it's soft market or hard market. So not to lead your answer either one or the other. But for you, would you say that you thrived more, or you found more success, or you liked better personally the hard market or the soft market that we had for 15 years, so to speak?
Yeah. So I would say I probably, so I like bringing new people on in the hard market, right?
Yeah.
I don't like the retention in the hard market.
Sure.
Because, and I think in our time right now, it's not just the market, it's, before we had like a hard market, nothing really changed policy wise.
Yeah.
It was just, hard to place business. Well, now, it's hard to place business because wind and hail coverage is changing, right? Or we're not going to take a roof at all, unless it's 10 years or younger.
Or 7 years nowadays. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, there's a couple of those, right? But like,
Jeez.
And so, keeping those people sometimes is easier because they can't move. If they've got a 15, 17-year-old roof, nobody's taking them unless they're being dishonest, which happens, unfortunately, but so I would say bringing people on in the hard market is nice, because you're not grabbing the entire bucket, right? You're grabbing 3 or 4 that really work for you and your agency, and you really work for them. Whereas in the soft market, like, it's just piling on, but I think it's the combination is really hard right now, with just the weather and the deductibles. And, it's hard when your company sends out something and all of a sudden they have a limited loss statement on a roof. So they're going to get 38% of that roof. Well, and by the way, your wind hail deductible is now 1%, and that's $6,700.
Yeah.
So you're not you can have the claim. Thank you for having the claim. Here's $200, right? And so that's the hard stuff. That's the hard
It
stuff
is.
because you can't fix that. You just can't. Whereas in our area for years and years, the insurance policy was the warranty on the roof, right? Let's be honest, that's what it was.
Yeah.
But now it is
So
not. So
when you're talking to producers or CSRs, account managers, staff, so to speak, that you brought in the last 5 years, I'm sure that conversation's come up.
yeah,
Do you have that conversation of like, you don't understand, soft market has its own challenges, or do you kind of go through that and talk to them about some of that? Or what advice do you give people as they struggle through having those phone calls that are tough, or getting yelled at by somebody, or having the rate increases, or being able to go to them and say, hey, our biggest market that we've had for 10 years just put a moratorium on us, or they
yeah,
just pulled out of the entire state?
yeah.
Do you have those kind of conversations, and what's your advice there, and how do you navigate through that as a manager or as a leader?
Yeah, and it's funny because when I was like our personal lines manager at Stevensdale, and now since we've been bought out by Hub, like I do still have some roles, but I'm a producer more than anything, right?
Right.
But they still do come to me sometime, even though they've been in the business as long as I have at this point. But like, um, I think the hardest part is just telling them, whether it's people in my office or talking to agents outside, right? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, you got buddies in captive agencies, and you got buddies in independent agencies, and they're all struggling through it.
Yep.
And I think just the main thing is telling people, hey, just show up,
Yeah.
answer the phone. It'll be all right. Like, it's tough, but it'll be all right. And you've seen people get out right now. I'm sure. Like I've had
Yeah.
agents I know that have gotten out in the last year and a half. They just thought, and they weren't ready, but they're like,
Yeah.
hey, I don't want to deal with this. I don't want to
Yeah.
do it. And for me, it's like even when I started at Stevensdale 23 years ago, 22 years ago, we had two personal lines markets. We had two. Travelers was in some sort of moratorium. We had Safeco and
Oh,
Unitrend, or
I remember them.
Trinity,
Oh yeah.
ended
Oh
up getting
yeah.
bought by Kemper later. And like we never
Oh
did.
yeah.
I don't even know if they're still
You may have
viable at
had
all,
Pat as a
but
marketing rep back then,
yeah.
but anyhow.
Oh, yeah. Don't let's keep that.
I didn't say last
Let's
names.
skip that part. Anyway, but yeah, so I had those two markets. So it was the same thing. Like, it wasn't easy
Yeah.
to bring business in. And so, but one of the best advice for a guy that's retired a few years ago from here, he took me to play golf. He and Steve took me to play golf, which I'm a horrible golfer and don't play a lot much, but they took me in, and when Steve left the room, he's like, hey Kevin, here's the deal. Like, just show up,
Yeah.
be a good guy,
Yeah.
work hard. And we all go through cycles of that, right? But like, that's it. Just show up. The business will find you if you're halfway a decent
Yeah.
person and you show up and answer your phone. Um, and then, the way I built mine is just it's referral. I'm I don't do a lot of cold calling. I'm not great at it, but it's, hey
So
man,
your
like
referral, I know you're involved in BNI.
I
This
am.
is Network International.
Hmm.
And so I used to be involved in BNI as well, for several years. I'm sure you're involved in Chamber of Commerce, things like that. But do you
I
work with,
really never have been.
really?
Mm-mm.
I mean, I'm sure, do you work with realtors, lenders, things like that, or you stick to, kind of BNIs and Optimist clubs or Rotary clubs or whatever groups like that?
So I'll tell you early on. So how I got, and tell me if you want me to stop talking at any point. But so how I got into BNI was one of our companies, State Auto, had the Pace Setter program, right? And as a
Oh
young
yeah.
agent, like I was in business for a couple of years, and I was like, hey, I need help. Like, my other guys in the office, they're running, they're doing, but they're not training, right? Like,
Oh, I
and
did
that,
pace setters. Oh yeah.
yeah, did you? Okay. So I did Pace Setter. So I went to Pace
I
Setter,
had
and one of
Diane
the,
as my coach.
yeah, me too. And one of the
Awesome.
requirements was to be in a BNI group,
Yep.
right? And so I had no idea what that was. And so I started one with three other guys. So
Same
we
thing.
started one in 2005,
Yeah.
and still have business from that group today. I did the North Little Rock Chamber for a little while. And now Hub is a corporate member, so I can go and if I want to, just to
Yeah.
pop in. But um, I find that for me, once again, I'm not great in the room, right? I'm great if I go sit at your desk. And so my biggest sources are people from BNI, long-term clients. And then I do have a couple of, real estate agents has never been a great source for me, and it's
Right.
okay. I'm more of a problem solver for real estate agents. I get those calls like, "Hey, Kevin, like we're
Yeah.
having this problem. This
You weren't my first
person,
choice, but you're my second choice.
still don't get the business. It's they just want me to fix the problem, and
Yeah,
so
yeah, yeah.
or tell them how to fix it. And I'm glad to do that. But I do have some lenders that are better sources for me
Yeah,
than real
totally.
estate agents. And I'm not that I would take the business from real estate. It's just never been a great
Yeah.
source for me. But yeah, most of mine was when
So,
pace setter, you make your list, you make your calls, you
oh
print
yeah.
out your page, you get your referrals. And what was funny about that, I don't know about you, but when I started like State Auto here, with like you could not write anything. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
I wrote $116 worth of revenue for State Auto that year. Like,
Really?
yeah, I couldn't write a thing. Had a
So
great
most of your business
year.
was written outside there. I
Yeah,
gotcha.
yeah. When I went back to our little round table, I was at the end, the worst end. Like, the best was over here, and they go around, and it was like me and another guy. And
Yeah.
and I had a great year. I mean, it was a wonderful experience, but like I could
Yeah.
not write State Auto Premium to save my life. So, you know, but
Totally. I get it. So, real quick, as we wrap up a minute, I would love to know because I did the BNI thing, and you got to
mhm.
stand up every so often and give your spiel and talk about your thing and what you're doing, and or you'll be on one-on-ones and they'll ask you questions.
Yeah,
How do you field some of those questions when they come and they'll stand up there? They'll ask you, why are insurance rates going up so high, or what's going on with the market, or whatever it might be. And maybe they don't ask that, but they always
yeah,
did, even when I was in it. So I'm
yeah.
sure they asked, how do you answer those? How do you field some of those?
It depends on how in depth they want to go. And if you say, hey, why is the market this way? And I'm like, well, hey, for a long time, Arkansas has run in negative profit margins for these companies, but they've been able to offset it with investments or the other areas of the country. And that is no longer the case. Or you could go, hey, so and so's reinsurance carrier limited their amount they would reinsure for. So they're being really picky and they can charge what they want to charge to get the
Yeah.
business. Or, hey, unfortunately, hurricane whatever in the Gulf of America caused
Oh,
this
God.
loss. And the whole country's going to feel it. You're going to feel it. You're going to feel it, even if you're not the majority. Your rates in Florida and California are different, and they're going to feel it more. You're still going to feel it because of the company. They don't just keep
Yeah.
you segregated here in our little. They did for so long. They did for so long. Arkansas was kind of
Isolated from a
relatively
lot of that.
insulated and
Yeah.
isolated, and now they're like, hey, there's premium here. We should catch up and make it profitable. And so that's what's happening.
Yeah.
So
I didn't know if you ever went the, the cost of labor or the
mm,
material goods route, or the cost to make a vehicle now is way more with all the technology and the backup cams and the Teslas of the world. I didn't know if you went that
yeah,
route.
we do sometimes because somebody will go from a 2012 Honda Civic to a 2024 Honda Civic. And that Joker, I mean, if you touch the bumper, it's totaled,
Yeah.
because there's 18 sensors back there and all of it, for your safety. But as far as repair, it's a nightmare for people. And so, there is some of that too. And then, hurricane time is when the labor and cost of goods comes into effect. And,
Sure.
I've had plenty of those claims where it's like, or not even necessarily claims. Claims end up working good, but I'll have those buddies that are building a house and they're like, whoa, 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 I can't. We were
Yeah.
going to build this house and I was going to have my shed and maybe a pool or something. And now I'm building the house
Yeah.
and
And
it's
well,
gravel
then,
driveway, and so, I get it. It's
yeah.
hard for that.
I just didn't know how dealt with that. And also with, house, the cost of a home now,
Hmm.
it's so you can't even put an inflation guard high enough to be able to keep up with I got a letter not too long ago that said, the value of my home right now. And it was like triple what I bought it for, which is great for me. But for
Yeah. Yeah.
insuring this sucker, it's like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh,
Yeah.
you want to, put this valuation on my home. And so
Yeah.
I wonder if you have to have that conversation much and how that affects that.
We do, I would say currently now writing new business is hard with that
Yeah.
because, like you said, hey, I bought this home, or even I'm buying it. Let's just say you're buying it for 400 grand. It's a
Yeah.
nice home, right? That's a really nice home around here.
Very. Yeah.
But all of a sudden so you're buying it for 400 grand. It's 2,800 square feet, still happens. Well,
Yeah.
the company is going to insure that for 575, 625. Like they're going to
Crazy.
be at 200 a foot minimal. And on these high net worth kind of places, you get into that, 6,000, 7,000 square foot house that, they think is worth 1.2. Well, yeah, we're going to insure it for 2.4 million. They're going to be
Yeah.
300 plus just to start. And they're going to come
Yeah.
inspect and they're going to be 325 or maybe
That's
270, but
that's
they're
just
going to be
again
done.
another conversation you have to have right
Yeah,
now that you didn't have
absolutely.
to before. And you start talking about, even approaching the subject of ACV versus, replacement cost and some of that. And I'm hearing a lot of those conversations, and people are open to that more now than they ever have been. And it's like,
Yeah.
oh, we're in a different marketplace than I've ever seen. And I'm kind of
We,
glad I got out
yeah.
when I did. But
Yeah. We have a lot. So with Hub, I'm lucky enough to go to like the personal line summit where all the, kind of personal lines
yeah,
producers um, come and meet once a year, and we have all the companies come in. And of course, because it's countrywide, well, continent wide, right? We have a lot of people from Canada and,
yeah,
um, a lot. We haven't gotten there yet, but we're close because West Coast, even through Colorado, Utah, they've gone to E&S policies, where
yeah,
it's not just admitted stuff, but the companies are doing it. Cincinnati and Chubb and,
yep,
they're all doing these E&S policies where you kind of pick, you're like, okay, I want to insure it for this much. I don't want any other structures coverage. I don't want any loss of use.
yeah,
I want to insure it for that. And I want to have my deductible here. And that's coming. That'll be here at some point for our harder to place risk, right? If they're like, a log cabin or somebody with a cedar shake roof that doesn't want to change it, and they'll be like,
right,
well, it's fine. Well, here's your option. And still got the same claim service, but it's not what we call like a full, HO3, HO5 type policy.
sure,
It's pick and choose. And we even have a carrier that was real interesting to me. We've got a carrier that out there out west and East Coast Florida is doing where what do they call it? Like they call it a risk sharing. So like, okay, hey, here's your coverage. Your deductible is this. You're going to pay for 25% of the claim. So on top of your deductible, what's your, and they'll go up to 49% so that the
oh wow,
insurance carrier still has the majority and they
yeah,
can file that way. But like, hey, what are you comfortable with? Like, okay, if you have a $500,000 claim, you got a $25,000 deductible. What are
yeah,
you comfortable with paying? Well, I will pay up to, you know, 20% of that. Okay. So your deductible is, 100 grand or 125 grand. But that's a market that's coming here. We're going to see that as things get harder and harder. Your normal everyday good risk of, no claims, newer roof, couple of good driving people, you'll still
yeah.
be standard markets, but like, it's like all the wildfire stuff. That's all E&S. It's nobody's standard writing that, you know.
And that's a whole nother conversation I get into for a whole nother day is,
Yeah.
just the emergence of E&S and how important MGAs are now. And opposed to when I was calling you with an MGA broker and you wouldn't even let me in the door. It's like, I don't want your crap business. But now I'm just kidding. But no, it's just, it's a whole different ballgame. I'm impressed, and I'm happy to see that for so many, of these
Yeah.
E&S markets, because they're able to provide a service and an opportunity to write business that couldn't have been written before. But anyhow, that being said, as we begin to wrap up, I just, it's been great to catch up and the audience get to hear us just catching up. We hadn't talked in a
Um,
long time, so I appreciate that. But is there any, any advice or any last minute things or anything like that you could, share with, whether it be, experienced producer, new producer, somebody like that just, like you said, I love what you said earlier. If you want to continue on that, even of just go to work, put your head down, just do the thing, show up, and show up for your clients.
yeah.
I think that's it. Show up for your carriers. Is there anything else in that same realm or beyond that or anything like that we can just leave out with on a positive note?
No, I think for me, and I struggle with this like even in everyday life, right? But But like for me, the biggest thing that you need to do as a producer, old or new, is find your people, right? Find somebody you can talk to, whether it's in your office or whether you have a satellite office,
Yeah.
But one of the best things that I've really enjoyed about Hub is that I've got guys in Tulsa that do what I do, or I've got guys in
Yeah.
South Carolina that do what I do, or I've even got, some people in Houston. I've got people that I can call and be like, hey, struggling here. Like, what are y'all doing? You
Yeah.
know, what about this? I've got guys that I met at that summit that now I've got them, text string, right? Like, got a guy that was, thank goodness his house didn't burn up, but he's a agent out in LA, and he deals with a lot of like celebrities and like baseball players and golfers. And so, I've had some of that stuff kind of that I'm interested in. So I'm calling him. He's like, hey, yeah, call this guy or like call him, make an appointment. I'll get on the phone with you. Right.
Yeah.
And so, that's a
Find
big
your
help. Just
people.
find somebody, even if you're small, don't be scared to get out of your walls and call your competitor down the street and be like, hey,
Yeah.
man, like I know we're competitors, but like, what are you doing? What are you seeing? Like,
Yeah.
and it just all works out. There's so much business, man.
There is. There
Much,
really
there's
is.
so much business for everybody. Don't feel like you got to hold on to your pennies. Like, but that's my biggest advice is find your
Yeah.
people,
I
you know,
love
go
that.
go to go to the chamber, join a BNI group, go
Yeah.
to, I don't know, start working a charity. I mean, some of my biggest contacts, I was in a retriever training club for a long time and like
Yeah.
it's awesome. I was training my dog. I was hanging out with older guys that knew what they were doing. Some of them in my business, some of them not, right? Just got to find some people, but you got to do it. Like they're not all going
Yeah.
to find you. You got to find them.
Love that.
I hope that's
There's a
helpful.
no, it's great. There's a song called "Find Your People" from I just looked it up. Drew Holcomb and the Neighbors. Made me think of that song. You should check it out sometime. It's a really funny little
I
song,
will.
but
I'll do that.
it's actually a good little song. I'll text it to you. But dude, I appreciate you coming to hang out with me in Insurance Town and being a part of the program. I appreciate you finally finding the time that I had to chase you down. This guy's hard to
Yeah.
find,
Yeah.
but you did a great job and added a lot of value to the town. So I really appreciate it. And man, I look forward to hopefully this will be the beginning of us having more common. Now that I know you live behind me,
Yeah, man.
in my same neighborhood, we'll have to get
Yeah.
together and hang out sometime. Or I'll come watch your kid play soccer.
Anytime, man. Would love to, but I appreciate you too. It's a good avenue. It's a nice something different.
Yeah,
People get
dude,
a
I
lot from
appreciate it.
it. So,
Man, I really appreciate you a lot, brother.
all right, man.